Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Live here, and today I've got for you just a little mini review of the Nintendo Switch 1 version of Pokémon Legends ZA. So if you want a more thorough and in-depth review, then we highly recommend you check out our Nintendo Switch 2 review, the main one. We'll have a link in the description. This mini review was originally written by the lovely Alana Hagues and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Pokémon Legends ZA on Switch is fine, and for a lot of people, that's gonna be enough. And certainly, even we're surprised that it's as stable as it is after Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet had more than their fair share of performance woes. But, and this should go without saying, if you have a Switch 2 and you want Legends ZA, get it on that. It's just a better experience. It's 60 frames a second, it's got sharper image quality, better textures, and far better stability. It's just a better experience on Switch 2. And honestly, we were expecting this version on Switch 1 to be a disaster, but we're happy to say that Legends ZA maintains a relatively consistent 30 frames a second in both docked and handheld. The drop is certainly noticeable when compared to the Switch 2 version, but if you're playing this fresh, it's not likely to bother you. What might catch you out, however, are some pretty noticeably choppy cuts. There's a lot more camera work in Legends ZA than previous games, from fast panning shots to cutaways, and whilst docked, every single one of these is staggered. Every single one of these was a bit rough. Zooming into a trainer after defeating them, catching a Pokemon unaware in the ZA Royale, there's a stutter every single time. It wasn't as noticeable in handheld, but it was still distracting. Luckily, things are more consistent in battle, where things can get a little chaotic. Some moves like Brutal Swing and Gust can cause frames to dip slightly, particularly in handheld, but for the most part, things are good enough. The visuals are one of our biggest issues with the Switch 2 version, and understandably, it's the same story here, despite the fact that the character models mostly look good. The flat textures are even worse on Switch 1, blades of grass look blurred and jagged, bushes and trees are all angular, and the cobbles just look fuzzy. Oh, and the shadows are absolutely abysmal, pixelated and blurry, and sometimes just not even there. Pop-in's an issue on Switch 2 as well, but again, on Switch 1, it's even worse! Sometimes characters and mega crystals will be visible from a fair distance, whilst other times they won't appear until you're about 10 steps away from them. It's incredibly inconsistent and distracting. Some building textures will even take around 6 to 7 seconds to load in, despite the fact you're staring right at them. Longer load times and softer image quality are to be expected, to be honest, but overall, despite the complaints, Legends ZA on Switch it's okay. It's a step up from the last two mainline games, but still far from Pokemon's best-looking titles. And honestly, we think it's the Switch 1 version's fault. We absolutely get why ZA is on this older console. I mean, the Pokemon Company isn't going to give up that huge player base with a mainline game just yet, but its limitations hold Lumio City back from its full potential. What could have been a vibrant, varied city instead comes with caveats, restrictions, and a fair few visual compromises. Pokémon Legends ZA on the original Nintendo Switch, you're getting a 6 out of 10 from us. And now that we're past that, it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and this was a really weird experience for me. I was so used to the Switch 2 version that the moment I loaded up the Switch 1 version, it was like something was wrong with the game. I mean, I did get used to it, and after a while, yeah, you kind of ignore the fact that it's at 30 frames a second, probably because it's a Pokemon game, and that's just what I expect these days. But more than anything for me, it just highlighted how much the fact that this is clearly a Switch 1 game is holding the Switch 2 version back, very much like Alana said. And further from that, just how much the Switch 2 version is not taking advantage of the Switch 2's hardware. You know, we've seen some incredible games running on Switch 2, the likes of things like Cyberpunk, so we know that it is a beastly unit, but so far there hasn't really been, unless I'm mistaken, there has not been a Nintendo-published game yet, and that may be about to change, that was made specifically with the Switch 2 in mind. You know, Donkey Kong Bonanza was originally made for Switch 1 and then they brought it over. Same with Mario Kart World. I mean, Okay, there's things like, you know, Welcome Tour and Drag X Drive, which I think technically were probably almost certainly made with Switch 2, like, in mind from the ground up, but, you know, I don't want to say they don't count, but realistically they don't count. So even though I really don't think we've seen what the Switch 2 is truly capable of, and oftentimes the games that use the most of a hardware's potential usually come later on in life, you know, I mean, there's exceptions like Luigi's Mansion 3, I still don't know how that runs on Switch 1, but even taking that into consideration, I don't think Legend ZA is really taking advantage of Switch 2. I have just realized my personal thoughts talking about the Switch 1 version have mostly amounted to talking about the Switch 2 version. So, I'm gonna change gear again. Yeah, ZA is fine on Switch 2. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's not amazing. It's not, you know, bad or anything like that, but it's definitely the lesser version. But with that in mind, if you did only have a Switch 1 and you really wanted to play Legend ZA, and, you know, there's plenty of fun to be had in there, this version is completely playable. It is completely fine. It's not as good, but it's completely fine, and it weirdly, it makes more sense on Switch 1. On Switch 2, I'm going back to Switch 2, but on Switch 2, it does feel like it's been upscaled. It feels like a sort of a 4K or a 1440p remaster, if you like, rather than, you know, a game made for it in mind. So it does sort of, it feels more cohesive on Switch 1, I would say, but it is still a lesser experience. Like, when you use certain moves or there's certain, like, effects on screen, things can get really, really blurry really quickly. But I would certainly describe it as a better looking and better running game than something like Scarlet and Violet. And I know that's not a high bar, but these are the cards we've been dealt by Nintendo and the Pokémon Company. Let's just leave it at that.